Hi, good afternoon. We're here live in the Miele kitchen here in Causeway Bay. My name is Chef Lee Adams of SKYE Park Lane, and I'm here just to do a couple of dishes for you. One of them, it really reminds me of Christmas back home, is profiteroles with a sweet chestnut ice cream and chocolate sauce. And another one is roast pigeon with butternut squash and some foie gras, something which is actually going to be on the new brunch menu in SKYE just after Christmas time. Very quickly, just before we start, we do have a game for you today. So as I mentioned, for my ice cream, it's going to be a sweet chestnut ice cream, but we would like to know from you at home, what ice cream actually would you like to prefer to put inside your profiteroles? Or what is your favorite flavor? You let me know, put your comments down below, and actually after the feed, we'll actually be picking a winner, and you will actually receive a voucher for brunch for two in SKYE. So keep your comments coming, there's no wrong answers. Also, just very quickly before we start, I do need to say hi to my darling, my daughter, Kaylee Olivia at home. Hi, hope you're proud of your daddy. I'll see you a bit later on tonight. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to start to make the choux buns for the profiteroles. Okay, so here I have some water. It's 200 mils of water. Inside the water, we're actually going to place the butter. As well as butter, it's going to be a pinch of salt and a little bit of sugar. Then we're going to let that come up to the boil. Whilst we're waiting for that to come up to the boil, we're going to use some flour and a little bit of baking powder. Now, if you want to, you can use self-raising flour. Typically, we do around 1.5% of baking powder to flour, or incidentally, you can just use self-raising flour. Make sure that you sieve it, that you pass it, okay, just to get out any lumps. You don't want to be mixing your profiterole pastry and you have the lumps inside. So you just put the baking powder into the flour and you can just fold that together. Okay, the reason why I've chosen the profiteroles is because it's something that my mum actually used to make all the time, every single Christmas when I was at home. I would come down around about 8 o'clock in the morning, excited to open presents, and I would see my mum in her dressing gown. She'd have wings made of balloons. She'd be drinking Bucks Fizz, which is orange juice and champagne, dancing around the kitchen to various different Christmas songs. And this is stuck in my mind. And then after dinner time, she would come out with a big tower of profiteroles. They always used to work, but she would be very critical of herself. But actually, they were perfect every time, but we never liked to tell her. Okay, once you see that the water and the butter has started to come up to the boil, then we're going to add in the flour and the baking powder. Okay, once it's inside, very quickly, you want to start to beat the flour into your mix. Turn down the heat a little bit. Okay, you can use a whisk if you choose to, but I prefer just to use the spatula. Mix everything through. And what you're looking for is that there's no floury bits, no lumps left in your pastry. Okay, once you're sure that there's no more floury lumps left in your pastry, what you'd normally do is just cook it out for a further 5 to 7 minutes to make sure that the flour is nice and cooked out. But just for the purpose of this live feed, we're going to take it off the heat. So normally, once your choux pastry is cooked out, then we're going to add the eggs. Okay, so I have 3 eggs. I've used the Italian organic eggs. They have a very rich yolk and a very nice flavor. And we're just going to put 1 egg in at a time. Once the egg is in, we're just going to beat it through. So off the heat, mix your egg through. See the nice, rich yellow color of the yolk? It's beautiful. So you can beat the yolk through. Once you finish beating 1 yolk, then you add the other 2 eggs. And you make sure that you add the eggs only once the other one is beaten through. Otherwise, what it's going to do is going to saturate your dough, and then the pastry is not going to rise properly because it's very uneven. Okay, so in with the second egg. So you can see the nice, beautiful yellow color of the dough. You want to do this off the heat simply because if you do it whilst the heat is still on, you're going to end up cooking the eggs, and that's not what you want. You want them to be cooked in the oven, and that's what's going to give the puff of the dough. Okay, then the last egg can go in. Beautiful. Okay, so we do have one question already about how do we stir flour without lumps. So you can use a spatula like I do, or you can use a whisk to whisk it through. You just need to be careful with a whisk though, because you don't want to incorporate too much air into it at this stage. You just want to beat it nicely through and just make sure that you really cook it out nicely. If you see that there's still some floury lumps in there, then you can just get in there with the spatula and take them out. Okay, what you're looking for is a nice smooth consistency. Once your eggs are all cooked out, all beaten through, then you can actually put that to one side, and then we need to let that cool down before it's going to go into your piping bag. Just again, with regards to the flour that we use for the profiteroles, this one I use plain flour with some baking powder, but you can use the normal self-raising flour. Also, if you choose to put some other flavors inside your profiterole, for example, you could put seaweed, you could put cocoa powder, it's completely up to you. It's Christmas, you can go crazy. So after you've let your choux pastry mix cool down, you can actually keep it in the fridge, just let it to rest, let the mixture come together. I have one here already. Here's one I made earlier, which has just been cooling down for around about an hour. Then onto a non-stick mat. I'm just going to pipe your profiteroles. It's completely up to you how many you do. The more the merrier. Depends how many you can eat. I won't tell you how many I used to eat on Christmas Day. Okay, so once you've piped your profiteroles, then you have an oven. We're using the fan oven, and it's going to go in at 170 degrees for around 20 to 25 minutes. First, I'll put it in for around 20 minutes, and then we'll check it. If it needs the extra 5, then we'll go in for the extra 5 minutes. So 170. Okay, 20 minutes first. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the pigeon. So actually what I'm going to show you is how to prepare the pigeon, how to take off the breast, the leg, at the same time how to use the bones to make a sauce. Something which is very important is using as much of the whole animal or the whole protein or the vegetable as possible. Okay. So here we have the nice pigeon. For this one we use the French pigeon. You can get some pigeon with all the offal inside. I mean, you can use that like things like the heart. You can actually cook it and eat it. There's nothing wrong with it. In SKYE, we actually do the same with chicken. We use the chicken liver, the kidneys, and we actually put it inside a fried rice with foie gras. It's something very special. Okay, so when preparing the pigeon, I've already done one half. When preparing the pigeon, the first thing we're going to do is just take off the leg. Okay, so you see here there's a little bit of skin, basically separating the breast from the leg. You just cut through there. You don't want to come up too high because then you're just going to remove some of the skin away from the breast. Okay, so you just cut it down here. You find where it's the bone and you just cut it through. With the leg, what you can do just to make it nice and clean, we just kind of cut around this bit of the leg, and then we're going to scrape away the end here just to make a nice clean bone. Get away with that sinew. Nice. And then once you've actually gone through there, you can see you've got a nice clean bone. And then you can cut away. Start to take it off here. There we go. All of this sinew, as you cook it, what that's going to do is going to cause the meat to shrink up. So you want to just cut that all away from the head of the bone. And then, with your knife, just cut straight through. Okay, so now you have your nice pigeon leg. Okay, also you can remove the wing. The wing is also quite important, especially when you want to make sauces, because it has a lot of flavor. We do have one question. It's about how to select the right pigeon. Actually, the first thing I think what's very important for us in the restaurant is to make sure that you use reputable suppliers. You make sure that obviously the pigeon is nice and fresh. It has this nice deep red color. You don't want to be receiving or using any pigeon which is a bit gray in color. Then you know it's not totally fresh. Chilled is always better, but you still can get some quite nice frozen products out there. Okay, when cleaning the breast, what's important is that you keep your knife as close to the bones as possible. You want to leave as less meat on the bone as you can. Just running your knife down from the tail towards the top of the breast. Okay, then once you see that it's come away from the body, it's just going to come off, okay? So you have the bones, and then we just can basically tidy up the pigeon a little bit. Okay, if there are any hairs on the pigeon, you can use tweezers or something just to pluck them off. It's not a problem. You can even cook them with them on. It's not going to cause too much damage. It's still fine. Okay, then what you can also do, like I have done with the bones, you can chop them up, give them a good wash, and this is what's going to go into the sauce. Okay, but before I do anything, I'm just going to wash my hands. Okay, so a quick reminder, we do have a Christmas game going on. Okay, leave your comments below about what would your favorite ice cream be to put inside the profiteroles. Mine is a sweet chestnut, but let's see what kind of ideas you can come up with. Can win a brunch for two in SKYE. So then what we're going to do now is move on to making the pigeon sauce, and as well as to confit the pigeon leg. So I'm going to put we have duck fat here. It's just going to go on a medium heat. And then also going to be the pan for roasting my sauce. For the leg, the pigeon leg, I'm going to put a bay leaf. Whether you're using dry or fresh bay leaves, just give it a little tear. It's just going to release the aromas into the fat. And also I'm going to use just a little bit of fresh thyme. We do have a rooftop garden here in the Miele kitchen. So actually I use the thyme from the garden. Also into the pan, what we're going to do now is going to put a little bit of vegetable oil and start to roast off the bones. Not too much oil, because you don't want to put so much oil to go inside the sauce. Otherwise you're just going to have to keep skimming it. So as well as going inside the sauce with the pigeon bones, we have got some Madeira. We also have some veal choux. We have chicken stock. Apple juice, use the fresh apple juice to give it that nice and fruity flavor to the pigeon, as well as some espresso coffee, and then later we'll be preparing the butternut squash. Okay, so when you see that your pan is starting to get nice and warm, we're going to go into the pan with the pigeon bones. Okay, so these have been chopped up, washed, and now we're just going to quickly roast them off just to get that really nice flavor going through the sauce. There we are, beautiful. It already smells good. Whilst we're waiting for the bones to roast, I'm going to take my pigeon leg, then that is going to go inside the duck fat. And that's just going to confit down nice and slowly. It could take around 45 minutes to 1 hour. Okay, so somebody is asking what about the doneness, the cuisson of the pigeon. Actually, normally in SKYE, and even for myself, we would serve the pigeon pink. But of course, it's completely up to you how you want it. We do feel there's a bit better flavor and texture with it being nice and pink. If your pigeon breast does have some hair on it, then you can just use tweezers like I'm using here. You can use the tweezers just to pluck the hairs from it, or even you can use a blowtorch, just something like this, just to singe off the hairs. It works the same. Okay, so now that the bones are getting nice and roasted, I'm going to go in with my Madeira. Woo. And going to flambe off the alcohol. We don't want actually that strong alcohol flavor of Madeira to come through. We just want the normal flavor. Okay, once that's done and that's flambéed off, we're going to go into the sauce. This is your veal choux. As well as some chicken stock. And then the apple juice. And then the coffee. Okay, stir that all around, get that going. Then I'm just going to leave it just on a very light simmer. Also, we're just going to put 1 bay leaf and just a little bit of the fresh thyme. Don't matter, you can put the stalks in because you're going to pass it off a bit later anyway. Okay, so I'm just going to keep that to one side and let that work on a nice simmer. Whilst at the same time, we are confying our pigeon leg. Okay, now the next step we're going to do is we're going to start to melt the chocolate. Just before that, I'm going to clean my butternut squash. So here I have a cut through of butternut squash. So we're going to make it into a fondant. Somebody is asking how actually we're going to burn off the alcohol without using a gas torch. That's a very good question. I mean, you can use a clicky thing for lighting the gas on the stove. You can use a lighter. It's not imperative that you do burn off the alcohol, but it's just going to give it a bit of a stronger flavor if you don't. But if you like it nice and strong, then of course you don't have to flame it off. So I'm going to take the butternut squash, just going to cut through. What's quite important is, and something that we do in SKYE, is we're not going to waste any of the butternut squash. We're actually going to make it into a puree. So all of this on the outside, this is actually going to be going into puree. Okay, so we're going to peel it, we'll be cutting it down, and then just mix it in with maybe some butter, some milk, as a puree, add some truffle like we do on our lobster dish, but we're not going to waste it. It's quite important. After we've cut through, just to make it nice and neat, I'm going to take a peeler, just to make the edges nice and neat. Okay, it's just for presentation. It doesn't do anything to the flavor, but it does look a little bit nicer just to have that nice round smooth edges. Once you have that, this is then also going to go into the duck fat and it's going to start to slowly cook. Okay, this shouldn't take too long, just around about 15 minutes or so. Someone's asking, can we actually use another kind of alcohol instead of Madeira? Of course you can, no problem. You can use another type of brandy. You can even use some red wine. You can deglaze with a Cabernet Sauvignon. It's completely up to you. I quite like the flavor of Madeira and how it actually elevates the flavor of pigeon, but actually the alcohol of choice is completely up to you. So now this one. Ooh. Okay, so now we're just going to check that we have the duck fat. We are confying the pigeon leg. We're also confying the butternut squash. And at the same time, I just have my sauce, which is just going to be reducing very nicely. Okay. Okay, how will I celebrate Christmas? Actually, for me, I'm going to celebrate Christmas by working in SKYE. But normally, I'll be celebrating Christmas just at home. It's been a long time since I've actually been in England for Christmas time. Being a chef, unfortunately, it's one of those things. But we have such a great atmosphere in the kitchen. We have lots of team spirit. So it's still a pleasure to be around all of the chefs and service team at Christmas time anyway. We always make the best of it as much as possible. Okay. So now what we're going to do, we're going to start to melt the chocolate. For the chocolate, what I use is 70% is the Miele chocolate from Vase. Vase chocolate is probably one of my favorite chocolates to work with. Hence why at the moment in SKYE we are actually running a tasting menu and it features around 14 different types of chocolate. So it's chocolate all the way from the starter through to the main course and the dessert as well as petit four. It's only on until the 14th of December. It's something extremely special. So come along and try it out. So for the chocolate, it's going to go into the Miele microwave. You can also put it over a bain-marie, which is basically a saucepan of water into a bowl to melt it slower. But these microwaves are very, very good. So nice and easy. And also now I'm going to also start to pick the herbs down for the pigeon. So here I'm just using some parsley, a bit of tarragon. These are carrot tops. Also, it was quite important when we received the organic baby carrots into the restaurant. We don't want to throw away the tops. This tastes very nice. It's very good in salads, so why not use it? So I'm just going to pick down just a little bit of the cress. Also, we can check how our profiteroles are doing. We can see in the oven using the light, they're coming on nicely, puffing up very nicely. 7 minutes left. They might take a little bit more time, but we can see. Okay, so a little bit of the carrot cress. So also here I'm using some flat leaf parsley. And pick some tarragon. The flavor of that anise in tarragon is very good with game birds such as pigeon. It's very nice. Just keep it nice and whole. That's it. And then we have the amaranth. For amaranth cress, we actually use a company called Urban Grow, and they actually grow all the cress hydroponically for us, and then they harvest it and bring it to us to the restaurant on a daily basis. So keep it nice and fresh, nice and colorful. So somebody is asking, how can we ensure that the profiteroles will rise? Well, that's a very good question. I mean, it depends on a lot of things. As long as your oven is preheated, make sure that you use the right type of flour, use the good quality eggs, then it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Of course, anything can go wrong, but as long as you follow the recipes and things step by step, then I think you shouldn't have too much of a problem. Also, someone is asking, can we use an electric whisk to mix? Yes, of course, no problem at all. You can use a stand mixer, for example, to beat the eggs into it, like what we would do professionally in a restaurant. Of course, at home it's a little bit limited with space and things, but you can use an electric mixer, it's still the same. So the chocolate's coming on nicely. Another minute should be fine. Stop. Okay, one thing I'm going to do now is actually I'm going to cook the pigeon breast first. It does take a little bit of time to rest, so I'll be starting to cook the pigeon breast, and then whilst that's resting, we'll be starting to prepare the rest of the ingredients. Together with the pigeon breast, as well as the leg and the butternut squash, we'll also be doing a piece of pan-seared foie gras. It's one of my favorite ingredients. It does feature quite a lot in SKYE. It is a favorite ingredient that we do use, and it tastes just brilliantly with pigeon. And the fat against the butternut squash and the pigeon and the sauce, it's very luxurious, it's very naughty, but of course it tastes very nice. So we're going to set the pan on a medium heat. We're going to wait till the pan gets nice and hot. Into the hot pan, we're then going to put just a little splash of the vegetable oil. We're going to fry the pigeon on the skin. 70% of the cooking of the pigeon is actually going to be on the skin because we want to protect the flesh. We don't want it to overcook and go too dry. Perfect. Lovely. So that's all melted now. We're just going to keep that ready to go. Profiteroles, another 7 or 8 minutes. Okay, so this pan's almost ready to go. Once we see that it's starting to get up to temperature, in with the oil. Before you cook your pigeon, you can make sure that the skin is nice and dry, and also don't forget to season. So we're just going to use a bit of salt and a twist of pepper as well. And the same for the foie gras. Bit of salt and pepper. Okay, just to remind you that we do have the game that's going on. Okay, so what is your suggested filling for Christmas profiteroles? Leave your comments below and we'll pick a winner after the feed. Someone is asking, can we substitute other types of pumpkin instead of butternut squash? Yes, no problem. You don't even have to use types of pumpkin. You can even use like potato, carrot, sweet potato, turnips. It's completely up to you, however you feel. Butternut squash and pumpkin is quite seasonal. Very good flavors at the moment, so that's why we choose to go with them. Okay, so the pan's ready to go. We're going to go into the pan with the pigeon breast. We're just going to lay it away from us. It's important that when you cook things in hot oil, you do lay it away from you. Don't lay it towards you because the oil could come back and splash you, okay? And then we're just going to let that cook down nicely. When you need to check if the butternut squash is going to be cooked, you can use something like a pair of tweezers or a sharp knife. And you just want to check it. Okay, so it still needs a little bit more cooking. When you see that it can go all the way through and it's nice and soft, then it means it's ready to go. That's going to get pan fried a bit later on with the foie gras as well as the pigeon leg. Now we're going to check the sauce. You can see here that the sauce is starting to reduce nicely, nice and sharp consistency to it, and that's going to be packed full of the pigeon flavor. Okay. Okay, when we do have a question with regards to the choux pastry. When we're actually making the choux pastry, can we put all the eggs in together? I wouldn't advise it. I mean, unless you're using a very high-power mixing machine and it can beat the eggs in straight away. Other than that, I would say that you add the eggs a little bit slowly just to incorporate one before you go straight into the other one. So that we see that the pigeon is cooking quite nicely now. Check the profiteroles. Also, they're coming on nicely. Well, then what you can do, once you know that your profiteroles are done and they're cooked, you can just switch the oven off. Basically, you just switch the oven off and then you just let them cool down. Ooh. Okay, so you just let them cool down inside the oven. You're going to need to let them cool down for around about an hour, because if you're going to try and put your filling straight inside, of course your cream, your ice cream or something is just going to melt completely. Okay, so what we're looking for on the pigeon is a nice color of the skin. Turn that over, then we're just going to sear the meat a little bit, and then we're going to start to rest it. One more time, check the fondant. Getting there. Also, after the feed, what we're going to be doing for the SKYE Instagram. On the SKYE Instagram, we're also going to be running another competition, so you have a chance to actually win another brunch for two in SKYE. So we'll be uploading a post of a photo later on of me in this wonderful Miele kitchen with a question about the pigeon. All you need to do is make sure that you follow this at SKYE Park Lane, the Instagram handle, and then you leave your comment in the picture with the answer. And then we'll choose the best answer, and then you also can win a brunch for two in SKYE. So as soon as the feed finishes, head over to the SKYE Instagram page. Okay, so we've just seared the underside of the pigeon. Okay, now we're just going to let that rest. We're going to let that rest nicely. Whilst the pigeon is resting, we're going to start to cook the foie gras. Okay, so foie gras into the pan. The reason why I'm just going to use one pan on a nice and low heat is because I want all the flavors to kind of mold into one another. I want to use the fat of the foie gras to flavor the pigeon breast, to flavor the pigeon leg, also to flavor the butternut squash. Plus, it's a lot less washing up. As well as something that my mum used to complain about all the time at Christmas. We used to have a deal that whoever cooked didn't do the washing up. Whenever my mum used to cook, I would do the washing up and I wouldn't mind so much. But whenever I used to cook, I used to use absolutely every single piece of equipment in the kitchen. There would be mountains of saucepans and everything. So that's why my mum didn't really let me cook too much anymore. Okay, so we can see that the sauce here is almost done. It's got a nice shine, starting to thicken up. Just another few more minutes and we'll be ready for that. We check the butternut squash. Perfect. So the butternut squash is nicely cooked through. So we're going to take that out of the pan into your frying pan, and we're going to start to get the nice color for the butternut squash now. Then we also check the pigeon leg. This one I say it's going to take around about an hour, but just for today's purpose, I'll show you how we're going to pan fry. So the pigeon leg can come out into the pan. We're just going to make the skin nice and crispy. Okay, we turn the foie gras over. We see the nice, beautiful color of the foie gras. Okay, so one pan cooking. It's always a lot easier, especially if you don't have too much space at home. Non-stick pans are always better, otherwise you're going to have a bit of trouble. Check the color. Nice color as well for the fondant. Once the pigeon's rested, back into the pan. Get some of that nice foie gras flavor onto the skin. Okay, when you see that the sauce is almost done, another 1 or 2 minutes, then we're just going to strain it. Going to strain it into another pan, and that's just going to get spooned very nicely onto the plate. Okay, so someone's asking why we use the pan, everything at the same temperature. Actually, that's a very good question. Because it's not everything that you can always cook at the same time. But for this one, it's actually, we're going to use it for searing. We're not really doing too much cooking. We're searing the foie gras, we're searing the butternut squash, we're searing the pigeon leg, all because it's been mainly cooked already. So the same temperature is okay. But if you're cooking something like a chicken breast with the foie gras or butternut squash, of course it's quite dangerous because you can't really manipulate the temperature too much. Okay, so the way that you can check that foie gras is cooked nicely is just by pressing, you press the top of the foie gras, it's nice and spongy. If you feel that it's a bit too firm, it means that the inside isn't quite cooked yet and it's still a bit raw. So just by checking that it's quite spongy, it does mean that the inside is cooked. You can also cook foie gras in the oven. It doesn't have to be in the pan. You just sear either side and then in the oven for 3 or 4 minutes and it'll do almost the same thing. I just really want to get some of the flavor from the foie gras into this dish. Okay, so for the cooking of the pigeon, like I said, we are going to cook it nice and pink, not too much. Okay, so now you see that the sauce is reduced now very nicely. Once we get to this stage, this is then going to come through the chinois. Okay, see the nice color of the bones. This one then can come off now. This one is very nicely cooked. And I just show you, just mix it around, get all that nice sauce just pushed through there. Lovely. Okay, so there's your nice Madeira coffee shoe. Then what we can do, out of the pan and onto the tray, your pigeon, your foie gras, your butternut squash, and your pigeon leg. Lovely. Okay, and then now for the plating. So I'll be plating the pigeon first, and then we'll be moving on to the profiteroles. So with the pigeon, after resting, I'm just going to cut it in half. So we're just going to trim the sides. I'm just going to trim them purely because it's easier just for it to stand up for presentation's sake. But of course at home you probably won't want to be trimming it. You can just go directly. Cutting through the skin. So you can see the beautiful color of the pigeon. Don't forget to season. Pinch of twist of salt and pepper. Okay, now we're going to go onto the plate. We have the butternut squash, beautiful foie gras, piece of pigeon, pigeon. Again, plating is completely up to you. We don't really put too many limits on how you plate, but obviously it's good to have a little bit of height, a little bit of color on there. Okay, so then you have the pigeon on the top. Just going to spoon a very nice bit of the sauce. And then as well as that, we have our nice salad. Again, little twist, little pinch of salt, twist of pepper, very slight bit of oil. Okay, the carrot flavor is actually going to work very nicely with the pigeon. Okay, so this is the pigeon, butternut squash with the pigeon leg and the carrot salad. Now we're going to move on to actually plating the profiteroles. Okay, so these are the profiteroles. We just let them cool down. Okay, as I mentioned, it's important that you do let them cool down before you're going to pipe anything in or put anything inside of them. After cool down, we can just cut them in half. Okay, then it's completely up to you. As we said earlier, I'll be doing a sweet chestnut ice cream because it's that time of year and chestnuts are perfect for this weather, for this season. But it's completely up to you. Let us know what kind of ice cream you prefer, what you think should go inside. Put it in the comments and you have a chance to win a brunch for 2 people in SKYE. Okay, so I already have the sweet chestnut ice cream here. Okay, it's been through an ice cream machine. Then I'm just going to cut out some rounds. And this is actually going to go into the middle of the profiterole. You can put any kind of filling you like. Some people put the creme chantilly, so chantilly cream. You can also flavor the cream. You can do anything else that you want to do. Someone's asking, where in Hong Kong can we buy a good pigeon? Actually, well, normally we would actually import our pigeons from France. Normally we do that just simply because we want to make sure that we get the right quality and what we're looking for SKYE. I'm sure there are places in Hong Kong that you can get pigeon, but just for us in SKYE we would take from France. Okay, so once you put all the chestnut ice cream inside, then it's going to come the really naughty bit, but the best bit of them all. Okay, this one on the top. Okay, then comes the fun. So you take the chocolate sauce, and just as what we used to do as well, back home, chocolate sauce. You might think, wow, that's a lot of chocolate sauce for all those profiteroles. It's not, believe me. And then you just pour nicely the chocolate sauce across the top of the profiteroles. Don't hold back, it's Christmas. Very nice. And then simply because it's Christmas time, what I've done is I've made some little fondant snowflakes to go on the profiteroles. What you can do, if you're going to pile it up like a big massive profiterole tower, just make sure that you can put a ring at the base first and then another ring of the profiteroles, and then you can just keep going as high as you want to. Okay, so we just take some fondant snowflakes. Here you go. Again, you don't have to do this, but it's just for a little bit of fun, bit of festive cheer. Okay, so these are the profiteroles with a sweet chestnut ice cream and a 70% chocolate sauce, as well as the pigeon with confit leg, butternut squash, and foie gras. So thank you very much everyone for joining me today. It's been a pleasure to work here in the Miele kitchen, and I hope that you get a chance to follow along at home. Also, please remember to comment, put below the comment for the ice cream. We're in brunch for two in SKYE. And I hope to see you in the restaurant very soon. I really wish everybody a very Merry Christmas. Thank you very much and good afternoon.